We are live.
Gentlemen, cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. I just nosed this thing and I said, I'm going to wait until we're recording. The nose on this is phenomenal.
Opalo.
It is, I mean, it jumps out of the glass. That's stone fruit, beautiful peach. That's Viognier. That's very early.
What is the blend?
It's Viognier and Rougeot. It's predominantly Viognier and about 30% Rougeot. So, but we did do it. We bring it in. We do a little bit of skin contact on it. We're not going to go into how much skin contact, but a little goes a long way with skin contact. But it's pretty amazing with that little bit of skin contact with beauty of Viognier. So you'll get that beautiful nose, and then all of a sudden it'll just burst out. It's pretty crazy.
You know,
we sit and watch it, and we'll sit on the side and just smell, and then we'll press.
You started drinking wine. Introduce yourself, please.
My name's Chris Rougeot. I'm the winemaker at Opalo, one of the winemakers at Opalo Winery in Paso Robles, California, Central Coast in California. So nice to see you, Florida.
How long have you lived here?
I have lived here my entire life.
Uh-huh.
I grew up here. I was going to go to, I got into several different schools. I ended up going to Cal Polytechnic in San Luis, which I happened to get in, which was the best school I got into. Tried to move away for about 15 years and realized I'm not sure why I'm trying to move away from paradise. It's beautiful here.
So when you went to school, were you going for, like, how did you get into wine?
No,
Like that whole thing?
no. I've been doing this about 20 years. Back in when I went to school, the big thing was biotech. So I have a degree in microbiology, and I was going to go into biotechnology. And so I went through 4 years of school, realized that I needed more schooling. Went to work for a company, realized that I did not want to do this for the rest of my life. So I was going to go back and get a master's, ended up taking a year off, working at a winery, and I've never looked back since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for a winemaker, we've talked about it this whole week, and just so you know, we do pretty well with our audio side. We recently decided a couple months ago we were going to put together a video, come to town, where are we going to go? Paso was the one that made sense to us. This is where we wanted to be, we're geeky about it, and it's starting to blow up. But when you get here and you see just how gorgeous it is, this property is beautiful.
Amazing.
It's unbelievable. But you get here and there's so many different microclimates, there's so many different soils, you have so much to play with. You make, how many different grape varietals do you grow?
We do about 22.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And in a small little portion of the world, this small little area of California, and it's a winemaker county. I mean, you get to play, and you make damn good wines, great expressions of everything that you do. We do really well with it in the market, so I don't know why you'd want to leave.
That was the thing. Really, one day I was like, I don't know why I'm trying to leave. A couple times I almost got hired away, but then I'm getting a better job here. And like now, I mean, just there's no reason. There is no reason to leave. You get to have all the expressions. And I always say I'm a little bit ADD, so doing 22 varietals is actually perfect for me. If I only did one or two, I literally get pretty bored. And I just don't know if there'll be much innovation. Right now, we can do all these things. It's just every day is a new challenge. So
What hooked you into doing wine? Like, how did that whole thing start?
well, part of it was there was two reasons. First of all, I grew up here, so the wine was here. Like I said, I was going to go into a more technical field, and honestly, that was the industry out here. But the other part of it, I did like wine, and I honestly couldn't afford the wine that I like to drink because I was just a poor college student. So I decided, hey, well, maybe we'll just make the wine I want to drink, and we'll go from there. So that's what I did, and I love the wines that I make.
That is not the only time we've heard that story.
It's true.
From other winemakers.
You know,
Common theme.
Yeah, it is a very common theme.
just make what you want to drink.
So again, 11 different microclimates in Paso.
So many different soil types. I mean, again, think about what I just said. You're making Bordeaux style. You're making Bordeaux varietals. You're making Italian varietals. We're drinking a Viognier and Marsanne, you said?
Rougeot.
So you're making Viognier Rougeot, and you're where else can you do that?
It's insane. It really is insane. I mean, you have the Pepin families right down the road, and they brought it in because they wanted to do Rhones. So I've been doing this 20 years. 20 years ago, the common belief was you really couldn't do Bordeaux here. It was going to kind of go to Rhone. It was going to be Zinfandel, and then all these older vineyards got ripped out, and instead of just planting this 40-acre cluster, was going north. I mean, that was the funniest thing about it. You couldn't grow Cabernet here, except all our Cabernet was being grown and going directly to Napa. And that was the secret.
Napa was buying that.
Yeah, in the 80s and the 90s, and you got your plot, you put 40 acres, you just did straight rows, and vineyard lasts anywhere between 10 and 30 years. Generally, when you want to try to do a replant, when they do those replants, instead of just doing these huge rows, you looked at bases, you looked at what you were looking for, you actually planted the correct varietals to the correct terroir, and all of a sudden, these Cabernets are incredibly better, and now you can grow Cabernet and you can grow Bordeaux and Paso. It wasn't so much that you couldn't do it; it's just there wasn't enough interest into actually going in and making sure that we're planting this correctly to do this correctly. And that's. I was a victim of it too. I didn't think you could do it, and then now we make these Cabernets, and they're amazing. I mean, a lot of these things really do rival what's going up, what's happening up north.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think Paso's got this great niche too, because I not only think that they're making great wine, but they're also making wine again that shows sense of place and terroir. You get those flavors in wine. So you lived here all your life. Like when you were young, how many wineries were there in Paso?
Not that many. So there used to be a wine. So this is old school Paso. There used to be a winery called Pizzeni Winery.
Never heard of it.
Pizzeni. So that's where Turley is now. So that was this amazing old vine. The old vine Zinfandel you get from Turley was that ranch. And my parents, we used to go. And you'd buy a thing of Carlo Rossi, drink it, and then you would go there and literally they would fill it for you. And that's what we used to make spaghetti sauce and to drink, and we would drink with that with dinner. But you literally just go to the winery and they would just fill it for you. Didn't have to be in a bottle.
That's so Italian.
Yeah,
that's like my dad grew up in Italy, and that's the same thing.
So that's kind of how I got into it. So we always did it, but obviously it was called red velvet. It wasn't what you get there. It wasn't what you. But that's what we would that's what we would drink back in the day. My parents still can't. My dad was a Teamster. My mom worked for the state of California for a long, long time. They still can't quite figure out how I got to where I am right now. My mom at one point told me she ruined me for wine because we no longer drink bad wine anymore. So I feel that's one of my greatest accomplishments is that my mother will no longer drink white Zinfandel.
Awesome.
So
you got to start somewhere though.
Yeah, of course.
I think a wine for every palate and a palate for every wine.
That's right. Yeah.
And everyone starts somewhere.
Now you've worked here for 10 years.
Yes.
And how did that go? How did you get this job? And
so when I first started working, I worked for a company called EOS Winery, and that's I got that right out of school, and it was a very big winery, and I learned the mechanics of making wine. So I understood. I honestly didn't know what So when I started, I didn't know anything about wine. I have a degree in microbiology. I decided I wanted to do wine. I went to Barnes & Noble, I bought a book on winemaking, I memorized the laboratory section, and I went looking for a job, and I literally had no idea what I was doing. And then now I have 3 employees, still don't know what I'm doing, so I faked it for 2 years. But it was a very good facility. They taught me how to make wine, all the mechanics, but it was it was a large facility. It was a little bit more winemaking by rote. So I worked there for I believe about 5 years, and then we had another guy in there by the name of Kristen TG, and he owned a company called Four Vines.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I ended up being assistant winemaker at Four Vines for about 5 years, and so that was more of the apprenticeship. So I knew the mechanics at that point. That was more of the apprenticeship of you got to kind of forget about what should be happening. You got to listen to the wine and listen to what's happening. So he's a pretty eclectic guy, and I worked there for about 5 years, and we did a lot of Zinfandel. So we did a series there where we made an Appalachian series where we were just trying to showcase terroir. So you're trying to find, we would get it out of Sonoma, we would get it out of Napa, we would get it out of Amador, out of Paso. Do it everything the same way, same barrels, and just kind of showcase terroir.
You guys were getting big scores.
Yeah,
too.
right?
Yeah,
and so I was there for about 5 years, and then here they were looking for a winemaker, and the fact that I just, Four Vines was a big Zinfandel house.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty good fit here because I'd made a lot of Zinfandel. So I've been doing this 20 years. I've been at Zinfandel every year for 20 years.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because we were talking about how great the cab is, but for me, what crushes are those Zins. I mean,
I love your petite Syrahs.
Absolutely.
petite
Well,
Syrahs,
petite, if you make Zin, you gotta make petite. They go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Summit Creek. I mean, everyone loves it. We blow it out anytime we bring it in.
Mountain
It's
Zen
gone.
too is wonderful.
Yeah,
Mountain Zen's
I
phenomenal.
challenge you to try. I challenge you to find a better bottle of wine for that price point.
Well, that's, again, you bring up price point, and that's something that's very important here. For every single one of these wines that we have in our store, we talk about it all the time. We tell everyone who comes in, these wines punch way above that price point. The value on them is insane.
I think generally all of Paso is very in the same way. You're
Correct.
getting really well-made wines in Paso.
Correct.
And the value of these wines are really good. I mean, when you talk about like higher end stuff, like it's still like cult wine in a way, but without the price, you know? I think that's an exciting thing about probably being here. And then when you started 10 years ago, how has the winery grown in the last 10 years?
It has been, the growth in here has been pretty insane. They were already looking to grow when we started. And one of the reasons they brought me on is because when I worked for Four Vines, we were 10,000 cases, and in the 5 years I was there, we've gone up to almost 80,000. It's a pretty big jump. And they were kind of looking to do something somewhat similar here. They were at about 30,000 cases, and they were looking to maybe double or triple. And that's kind of my wheelhouse, is between about 30,000 and 100,000. I think up to about 150,000. That seems like a lot, but it seems like a lot. It's not a lot. Because you look at these other wineries, they're making, once you get to 500, 1 million,
Right.
that's a lot of wine. I honestly think at about 120,000 cases or less, you can still steer the ship and miss the iceberg, and you can do it okay. But once you get past that, you just kind of have to sit back. You're just going to run into it and figure out what can you damage people afterwards. And that's why I like to have these. Once you're at about 100,000 or less, somewhere in that range, you have a lot of control in terms of you can afford the equipment, you can afford people, you can afford all these things. You can make really, really nice wines and have a lot of control over it, So that's what I really, appreciate about the growth that we've had here. And the biggest thing here, you said, I've been here 10 years. So 10 years in winemaking, that's like 30 years in dog years, because we tend to jump around a lot. But Rick and Dave are so Rick Quinn and David Nichols are the owners, and they love wine, and all they really want is to make really, really good wine. And they're really into having the brand be very good and having the wine be very good. And it just makes things so much easier when ownership is that involved and that into making the wine. I don't know why I want to go anywhere else. I literally say, hey, they ask me, what can you do to improve the wine? I say, well, we can do this, 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 and this. And they're like, okay. I'm like, well, no, which one? They're like, no, okay.
All of them, huh?
Okay, well, we'll just do these things.
It makes me feel good as a
Oh,
winemaker
it's amazing.
to know that that they're behind you.
It's amazing. I mean, winemaking is stressful to begin with, no matter what happens. I mean, this is my day. This is my first day off in 15 or 18 days.
And we had to drag you back in.
This is the fun part. At least I'm not trying to surround a vineyard right now. But I love it. I mean, and they make it easy. They make it easy to love. They really do. And they do all these things. We get to do a lot of different varieties, and all they want is to make sure that the wines are good.
From when you started, like how many employees are in the wine production part of this? Because you guys, I mean, you have a B&B, like a B&B, or you have this whole area with food and wine. And you have a big pizza oven over here, a wood burning oven. I mean, so from winemaking team, where are you at now?
When I first started, it was me.
I love this.
It was me. So the other winemaker, James, who couldn't be here, but he's literally at the winery right now because Sunday is his day. He was my cellar master. He was just out. He'd worked here. He was friends with the owner's son. He'd worked pizza oven. Really, just a go-getter. He was my cellar master. I had one extra guy who was kind of full-time, and that was it. There was 3 of us. And we started in this little building, which you can't see, I'm pointing at over here, that was 6,000 square feet. We called it the Excuse Me Wineries. I'm not quite sure how we made all that wine out of 6,000 square feet.
Oh, really?
And we've since then, so that was 10 years ago. He moved up to assistant winemaker, and then now James is a full winemaker. I mean, we do everything together. He's an incredible asset, and yeah. So we went from 6,000 to about 45,000 square feet. Different tank layout. We got to build the entire winery. We got the plant. You guys will see the vineyard later. So we're in. You talked about the 11 different subclimates.
Yeah.
We're in Willow Creek right now, which depending on where you're at, Adelaida or Willow Creek are probably the two highest ends of the sub-apps. And we bought the property next door. There was a walnut orchard on it. The walnut orchard, the drought we were still farming it, but the drought kind of took care of that. So we ended up pulling it out, and we got the plant at 48. I don't know the next time I'm going to be able to plant 40 acres to my specifications in the Willow Creek. Probably will never happen.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. So just what we were talking about, we got to plant the slopes. We have Grenaches in the right spot. We have the Zinfandel in the right spot. We have the Cab in the right spot, and be able to just literally plan the entire thing to bring the wine method.
That's your mark. You're an artist.
Your finger.
You did that. That's a beautiful thing. And I heard you saying earlier when the world shut down and you kind of had to close down production, not production, but the tasting rooms, the restaurants. You had to turn it to a restaurant, right? Is that as the specifications?
Yeah,
that happened?
because in California, if you had to serve an alcoholic beverage, you had to have it with food. So we were already serving food, but
Right.
we went from we're doing tastings and we have food to this table service with tasting, it's all together.
But as everything kind of shut down, you were saying it allowed you to expand even further out here, right?
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of this is
Absolutely. This lovely fountain we see behind us wasn't here in March of 2020.
Wow.
We had already had the plans for it, but the problem was that we'd be sitting on a hill right now, so there's a lot of heavy equipment, and people do not like heavy equipment when they're out trying to taste, and I 100% understand
Right.
that. I mean, if I'm out trying to enjoy myself on vacation, I don't want to hear skip loader behind us.
right.
So we ended up closing down, and so the owners are just right on it. They just said we're gonna do the expansion. We'll do it now when everything's closed. We didn't lay anybody off. You had the choice. You could lay off if you felt like it. If not, we just put everybody on a phone bank, and we started doing online sales.
Yeah.
And everybody was home, so we actually did pretty well with online sales.
I think that's
Yeah.
even with us, we started our online business when COVID hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then too, I'm sure you guys did the same thing, pickups, and you have people.
Oh yeah,
come to
100%.
wineries and
Yeah,
stuff.
you can come in and pick up.
Yeah, so I think that did. I think there was some really good positive. Like we never did Zooms, but all of a sudden we were like, Zoom. That's
We were
stupid.
apprehensive. We didn't.
And then all of a sudden you sell 30 cases in one
I
night.
did more Zooms.
Crazy.
Yeah, and like the first couple of Zooms I did, I'm like, honestly, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Part of wine is experience too. I mean, like when you have a great experience with wine, let's just face it, the wine is always better with a great experience.
Right.
But part of that is I like to be there with everybody. So I didn't know how it was going to be going on a Zoom call, and honestly, it went great.
Yeah.
Way better than I thought it was going to be.
We had the same experience.
We were like shaking it off. People were going, let's do a Zoom. Let's do a Zoom. What are you talking
We
about?
were really apprehensive. It was, are we
We
going to
did
do it?
one
I think the first one we did was with Laura Catena.
Yeah.
Comes on and crushed it. Everyone came in afterwards telling us it was phenomenal. We felt so close to her, and we realized then, she's on the other end of the world, and we're getting this experience together. Of course, we're, everyone's in their own homes, whatever, but it was a nice experience, and I think it, for the time being, it was a great time.
And it felt good to see other people on your screen besides, because, I saw my wife, I saw all the people I worked with, and that was about it.
I had the same experience, and it wasn't wine, but it was. I have a buddy in Texas, and he's like, "Hey, I got a whiskey brew." I'm like, "Great!" And we're doing a tasting. I'm like, "Well, you're in Texas." He's like, "Well, they're gonna do it Zoom this time because no one can get together." He's like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Sure." And I wasn't even sure I was gonna like. I had to work late. I went, and I sat down and I talked to a bunch of people from all around the country that I never would have interacted with. I had a great time.
Yeah, that's the same thing. We have people like in Vermont and people in Georgia, people in
over.
Tennessee. So, And it brought us new clients, New Jersey. It brought us new clients that would have never, ever, probably shopped with us.
I bought a what was it? It was a Rougeot smoked whiskey from Texas that I never ever would have seen. It had not been on this Zoom call, and I was like, this is really, really. It was more subtle. You never think of Texas as subtle, and I was like, okay, all right. But I'm in. I ended up buying several bottles of it.
We found a lot of people that, you know what? Our kids are away at college. They're, out in Vermont or whatever. Let's get them involved on this tasting, and now they're together. Their family is on with our family, is on with their family.
They were in Chicago.
It was beautiful. It was a really cool experience, and like you said, there are some positives that came out of that whole ordeal.
Yeah. So, always silver linings.
Absolutely.
Anything new you want to talk about? Anything?
Well, honestly, this is one of the reasons I brought this up. So we already kind of talked about it, but we kind of got past. The other thing is that we are. This is going to be the. You'll see the vineyards after this, but this is going to be our first harvest off those vineyards. I'm really excited about that. This year, third leaf, so be gentle. But next year we're going to be in full production.
And how is harvest going for you?
To be frank, there's no wood, but
I got it over here.
It's normal, and normal is good right now.
Normal's good.
So in Paso Robles we can have these really big heat spikes. It was hot through July, and the thing is, a couple of spikes isn't a big deal, but just the more spikes you have, the grapes just kind of bounce back less and less after each spike. So we had a couple of spikes, and I was kind of getting a little worried because generally July was hot, August and September tend to be hotter months. And so I was getting a little worried, and then we hit August and it was like 78, 82 for almost 4 weeks straight. Everything's came right back into line, and it's been a phenomenal harvest so far this year. We've been lucky. I mean, I know everyone's heard about California and the fires. That's mostly been up north. We haven't had any fires here in the last 3 to 4 years. We don't get those Santa Ana winds when they get up north, so we don't still get those blow torches coming over. There is problems with, you have to worry about power. So that's the funniest thing, is that because of the way the power's working now, if they have anything, they're going to do any fires, they'll just shut off huge swaths of electricity. And you can have everything fermenting in a winery, millions of dollars in a winery. Well, you get generators, but the problem is when they say that, then everybody realizes they need generators at the same time. It takes time to get all that done. So those are the kind of worries. But the funny thing is, the things I'm not worried about is the weather. I'm not worried about fires at this point. So hopefully it's gonna be the rest of the year's gonna be really great.
That's great to hear. And it seems like the word is out. Did I hear you say you're booked out?
Oh,
months in advance.
We're booked out. We're booked out. You have to get reservations just to come to sit down. If people come in and it's unfortunate they're upset that they can't get a reservation because every table is booked, and we put on this entire patio behind us, and we're still filling all that out.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And well deserved. I mean, these wines are
great.
Phenomenal. This whole facility is beautiful. I can't say enough good things about it. We are huge supporters of what you guys are doing, and keep trucking, man.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I took you away from football and probably some family on Sunday.
Oh, I got a music festival to go to today.
We'll be there.
Oh, you gonna be there?
Yeah, we'll be there.
Cool. I'll see. I'll have to get the number. Well,
yeah.
We'll have a beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Some wine.
Sounds great.
Cheers.
Right. Cheers, guys.